Hello folks, and welcome back. Well, here she is, the trident maple that I did my very first video on. It's June, first week of June, and it's time to do some work on this tree. This one here actually buds out a little bit later than most, which in a way is a good thing because sometimes we have a cold snap come through and that can cause some problems. But what I want to focus on today is, you see all these, since we did the main trunk chop again for height, you see all these other branches here battling for dominance, the apical dominance. And if we let it go too long, it's going to be a problem. So what we're going to focus on today is getting those reduced. I don't know if you guys can see it or not, but this is the first year this thing actually bloomed for me, and I've got tons of trident maple seeds that I'm letting, I guess I'm just letting them grow on here to help drain some energy. This tree's been in this pot now for 4 seasons. I should have repotted it this year. I just didn't have time to do it. So we'll make sure we get that done next year, and we're probably going to end up putting this in a bonsai pot next year. Update on the thread grafts. The thread grafts that I made up top took. The one that I made back here did not take for whatever reason, but I'm happy with what I've got. I've got 2 more successful thread grafts this season. I'm going to let them grow freely just like I did this branch here, which is now the bottom branch. It's got a little bit of wire digging into it, so I need to remove that wire. But that branch is set in position now, which is good. It's a little heavy because all those seed pods on there, so it's weighting it down a little bit farther than I want it to be, and we'll have to do something about that as well today. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm just going to be removing a lot of these, making sure that my apex that I want to be the apex is the highest part of the tree so it can continue to grow. And we'll do a lot more reduction on this thing, and then we'll be able to get inside the bones of it and see what we have going on in there. So stay tuned, we'll be back shortly. Okay folks, we're back. Once again, got to apologize for the lighting. I still don't have power hooked up to my shop out here. I'm working on it. It's just, I got to get permits and all kind of fun stuff because it's got to be connected straight to my meter out front. I've got to get with the power company and all this, that, and the other. So it's becoming more of a headache than it's worth, but I want to get it done nonetheless. Here we are on the tree though. As you can see, I went ahead, this thing was just way too heavy and out there, and instead of continuing to let it grow freely to thicken up the branches, I've got a lot of nice back budding back up in here, so I went ahead and chopped it off. The branch did spring back up a little bit, and I may end up still bringing it to somewhere right around this area. I'm going to experiment with some wooden wedges. I'm going to carve a U shape out of a wooden shim that I have and stick part of it in the ground and part of it out to hold this branch up. I just haven't got to that point yet. I'm getting ready to lose battery on my camera here, so I wanted to get this done. We got the new apex established here. I'm not going to let this thing go as wild as we did last year, of course, because you saw what happened. Got 30 feet tall and we had to start all over again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let this grow free, and I'm going to let it get about as thick as maybe your index finger. Okay, and then once it gets to there, I'm going to hack it all the way back and then see if I can't get a second year's worth of growth on the apex. I see the apex on the final design of the tree somewhere right in this vicinity. So this is our apex. It's nice and centered with the base of the trunk, but it does have movement like the rest of the bottom of the tree. This here is one of my grafts that did take. As you can see, it's there, it's alive, so yeehaw. It was being shaded out by some branches that I didn't need, so I went ahead and removed those to allow as much sunlight over here as possible. This one here in the back is the other one that I got successfully grafted, so I wanted as much sunlight to get to these 2 branches as possible. No dieback at the tips or anything, so these are going to start expanding now and growing out in this general direction. One of them I'm going to train more towards the front, the other one I'm going to train more towards the back to fill in this side of the canopy. I do have a couple other ones over here. This mass of foliage that you see on this side of the tree is actually the whips that I've bent around and back through, if you remember from the previous video. And they had a lot of unnecessary excess growth, so what I've done is I've cut all that way back. I've eliminated just about every branch. I left a couple of leaves on all the way along the branches themselves to maintain some strength there. But again, what that's going to do This tree was putting a bunch of energy over here into these branches to grow new apically dominant shoots. Because I've removed those, now it's going to redirect that energy to the tips over here and try to get these to be the apically dominant shoots. Because if you see, they're slightly bent at an upward angle. I've got these slightly bent at an upward angle to help with that. So hopefully these will start taking off and we get what we need here. It may take this season and next season. That's okay. They're alive, and that's what matters. And that's more than I can say for what happened last year with the squirrels. The one in the back did not make it. It was right here. I left the stud there just as a reminder. But I did have some back branching back here this year, so I'm kind of happy with that. It is a little bit lower than it was last year, so I may end up just developing something out of that and just using that as a back branch now, where I didn't have that option last year. So that's a positive as well. So this thing's doing really well. This one here, once again, I don't know that I'm going to do a lot of nitrogen feed on this tree now that we're kind of more toward the lines of we've got our established branches now. I'm going to probably do one more season on this one with the nitrogen feed, just for the simple fact that I want these two branches here to take off a little bit before we worry about separating from the main stems over here. Now also inside this area where the main stems are, I have left a branch that I plan on using as a secondary branch in the final design. So that's another reason why I wanted to really remove as much as possible off of this side of the branches that I potentially am going to be removing later on to allow light to penetrate in there to feed the branches that I want to keep. So that's it for this year on this tree. Let's go ahead and do a quick 360 on it. These videos are kind of short and sweet because there's not a whole lot to go over. We've gone over a lot of the details already on these trees, and it's just a matter of now starting to do the cutting back, letting it grow, cut it back, let it grow, cut it back, to develop that ramification. At the same time, we're going to let these grow freely on this side so they can develop the thickness that we want before we start working on the ramification on this side of the tree. I'm really positive about this tree. I'm happy about this tree. I think this is going to be a really great tree when it gets finished, and everything's working in our favor this year. So I'm really satisfied with the results that I've gotten so far. I did live, let's go ahead and do our 360. Okay, on that side note, I did leave a few of the seeds on this side. I'm going to go ahead and let them grow. They'll be viable. I don't see why they wouldn't be viable. But just because this is the first season, I've had this tree now going 5 to 6 years. Started shooting videos on it about 3 to 4 years ago. It's never bloomed and it's never developed seed. I don't know how old these trident maples have to be before they start having seeds on them. But I was pretty excited with it, so I'm going to let them, grow and develop. There's probably 200 or 300 of them. When they get to the point where they're ready to be harvested, I'm going to harvest them, put them in a paper bag, let them dry out, and then I may just sell them on eBay or do something like that. Or I'm not really into sprouting and propagating per se. I just don't have the time and energy with a 5-year-old to 5-month-old. It's just not going to be realistic for me. I may do a show me your tree. If any of you have been following me through this and utilizing my techniques, I may just go ahead and do a little show me your tree contest where you can maybe take some photos and do a photo progression of your trees as well, utilizing the same techniques and maybe some of the stuff that I've taught you as well. And I'll just give you the seeds as a first and second and third prize gift. That might even be better to do. So stay tuned for that. We'll see what happens. If the squirrels don't get them and the birds don't get them, maybe we can do something like that. Just want to thank everybody for their support, for their views, for their comments. Please keep them coming because I'm more than happy to answer any questions you may have. And I just want to thank you for watching.